to call your next witness?
Yes, Judge. The state calls Dr. Lauren Thoma.
Hi, doctor. Just watch your step, please. Hate to do it to you, but once you're ready, if you could just stand up for me. But take your time. Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Okay, you're fine. I do solemnly, now I just forgot the whole part of it. Yeah. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I affirm.
Okay, thank you so much. You can be seated. Can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
My full name is Dr. Lauren Thoma. My last name is spelled Thoma.
Okay. Great. Prosecutor?
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Thoma, where are you employed?
I am employed by the Middlesex Regional Medical Examiner's Office.
And what is your title?
So as of the beginning of this year, I'm now the acting chief medical examiner.
Now, what does the Middlesex Regional County Medical's Office, or Medical Examiner's Office, cover? What particular counties?
So we're physically located in Middlesex County, but we have shared services agreements with Monmouth County and Mercer County.
And what specifically do you do there?
So first and foremost, I am a forensic pathologist employed as a medical examiner, which means I investigate sudden, unexpected, or unnatural deaths that fall into certain categories under New Jersey state statute. Now with my role, I was the deputy chief from 2018 until beginning of this year. So I had more of a management oversight, and now I'm the head honcho.
Doctor, I'm going to approach you with S-376.
Judge, may I approach?
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
It is a copy of my slightly outdated CV now.
Can you please provide the jury with the benefit of your educational background?
Sure. I completed a bachelor's degree in biology at Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. I then undertook a medical degree at it's called Jefferson Medical College when I went there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I completed a 4-year pathology residency in both anatomic and clinical pathology at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I then moved to New York City and completed 2-year-long fellowships. The first was in forensic pathology, and then the second was in forensic cardiac pathology and neuropathology.
Now, can you summarize your employment history, starting chronologically, if you could?
Sure. So I was initially hired as an assistant medical examiner at the Northern Regional Medical Examiner's Office in Newark, New Jersey. I was there for approximately 2 years before being hired by Middlesex County in September of 2014, when it was a single county office.
Doctor, what is your medical specialty?
So my medical specialty is forensic pathology, but I also have board certifications not only in forensic pathology, but anatomic and clinical pathology, which is my primary specialty.
Now, your certification for forensic pathology, what did that entail?
So for any certification, board certification process, you have to complete a certain number of training years, and then you sit for and ultimately pass a day-long examination.
Now, are you a member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I'm a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners, the American Academy of Forensic Science, and the Society for Cardiovascular Pathology.
And what is the number of years that you've worked in your profession?
So if you count my fellowship, where I was performing autopsies in the same manner that I'm doing now, it's been coming up on 16 years.
Can you tell us what forensic pathology is?
So to back up, pathology itself is a study of the understanding of the causes and the diagnosis of human disease. Forensic pathology specifically deals with sudden, unexpected, or unnatural deaths.
Is it possible for you to estimate the number of autopsies that you've performed in the course of your career?
I've performed over 2,500 autopsies.
And have you ever testified in court with respect to your conclusions and outcomes?
Yes, I have.
And how many times is that?
This will be number 70.
What jurisdictions did you testify in?
So for New York State, it was New York County, which is Manhattan, as well as Kings County, which is Brooklyn. When I was at the Northern Regional Office, I testified in Essex County, Somerset County, and Hudson County.
No, go ahead.
And, the 3 counties here, Middlesex, Monmouth, and Mercer.
Were you qualified as an expert in those instances in which you testified?
Yes.
And specifically an expert in what?
An expert in forensic pathology.
How many times did you qualify?
Every time.
Judge, at this time, the state offers Dr. Thoma as an expert in forensic pathology and determination of matter and cause. No objection. I apologize. I didn't mean to speak for Mr. Byrne.
We don't have an objection. I'm sorry.
If you have an objection, you can, even if she doesn't.
No, I understand, but we don't have it.
Okay, great, thanks. All right. Who's going to read it? I'll do it. All right. Normally, a witness cannot testify to an opinion. However, an exception to this rule exists in the case of an expert witness who may give an opinion as to any matter in which they are versed. In legal terminology, an expert witness is a witness who has some special knowledge, skill, experience, or training that is not possessed by the ordinary juror, and who thus may be able to provide assistance to the jury in understanding the evidence presented and determine the facts in the case. You're not bound by such expert's opinion, but you should consider the opinion and give it the weight to which you deem it is entitled, whether that be great or slight, or you may reject it. In examining an expert's opinion, you may consider the reasons given for it, if any, and you may also consider the qualifications and credibility of the expert. It is always within the special function of the jury to determine whether the facts on which the answer or testimony of the expert is based actually exist. The value or weight of the opinion of the expert is dependent upon and is no stronger than the facts on which it is based. In other words, the probative value of the opinion will depend upon whether from all of the evidence in the case you find that those facts are true. You may in fact determine from the evidence in the case that the facts that form the basis of the opinion are true, not true, or true in part, and in light of such findings, you should decide what effect such determination has upon the weight to be given to the opinion of the expert. Your acceptance or rejection of the expert opinion will depend, therefore, to some extent on your findings as to the truth of the facts relied upon. You and you alone are the sole fact finders in this case. You must be persuaded solely by the evidence presented at trial when determining whether the state has satisfied its burden. As the sole judges of the facts, you are to determine the credibility of the various witnesses as well as the weight to be afforded to their testimony to determine whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the crimes charged. With that being said, prosecutor, you can go ahead. The court is accepting this witness as an expert in forensic pathology and the determination in manner and cause of death.
Doctor, the term autopsy and the term post-mortem examination, are those essentially synonymous terms?
Postmortem examination encompasses exams where we just do an external examination. We don't need to proceed with an internal examination, but autopsy does fall under that broad header.
Now, in the present case, State of New Jersey versus Paul Caneiro, did you have occasion to perform any autopsies?
Yes, I performed autopsies on Jesse Caneiro and Jennifer Caneiro.
I would like to first address your autopsy with regard to Jennifer Caneiro. Did you document your exam in a report?
Yes, we prepare a report for every postmortem examination that we complete.
And does that report include a body diagram?
The report itself does not include that, but I create a body diagram in the autopsy suite to aid with creating the report.
Okay, I'm going to approach with S-378. I'm going to ask you if you recognize this.
I do.
And what is that?
So this is a copy of my autopsy report. It's bearing my signature and the date of February 1st, 2019. There's also a copy of the toxicology report, as well as the investigator's report, and copies of the diagrams I generated in the autopsies.
Now, the date on the report, that February date, is that the date you actually conducted the autopsy of Jennifer?
Jesse.
Jesse, I'm sorry. Did I give you the?
Oh, you gave to Jesse.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'd like to discuss Jennifer first. But let me ask you, does the date that you have on your report, does that reflect the date that you actually conducted the autopsy, or was it done at some different date?
Let me just make sure that all the pages that I spoke of before are here. They are.
Doctor, what's the exhibit number on that one?
This is S377.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, no, the date of examination was November 21st, 2018, and the majority of my report is generated at that time, including the internal and external examination. We wait until the results of all of our testing, including toxicology testing or other ancillary tests, are received before we incorporate those findings into our report, and then the date at the bottom is when the report is finalized.
Now, in your report, let me ask you, what was the age of Jennifer?
So I was told that her age was 45.
I'd like to draw your attention specifically, and they're not numbered, it's going to be page number 17 of that report, specifically the body diagram. Do you have that body diagram?
I do.
You talked a little bit about it before, but what is the purpose of that body diagram?
The body diagram is something that I use during the autopsy to make notations of my observations, both external and internal.
Are you making those notations as you go along with your examination?
Yes.
Now, is there a protocol that you routinely follow when you perform an autopsy?
So every case that gets reported to our office is assigned a unique identifier number, and that is used to label all of the case documentation as well as photographs. So in this case, it's 13-18-1299. 13 is the code for Monmouth County. It's the New Jersey counties in alphabetical order. 2018, the last two digits of the year, and the last number means that this is the 1,299th death report we got from Monmouth County in the year 2018. So you'll see that identifying number on all of the documentation. So once I am given, as we know a case is coming into the office, we review the investigator's reports. In this particular case, X-rays were ordered before. We look at those before we go in and do an exam. Then we proceed stepwise through the exam process. That is the same basic process for all the cases we do.
And the X-rays, what is the importance of that?
So we generally order X-rays in a routine panel of cases. Any case that is charred or there's penetrating trauma, or child deaths, or people who may not be visually recognizable.
Now, can you explain to us the protocol that you follow when you perform an autopsy, as you just discussed, starting with how the body is received?
So the body is received in a sealed body bag with a unique case number that is photographed for documentation of chain of custody purposes. Then the seal is broken, and we do what's called our first round photographs, which is a documentation of exactly how the body is received in the office. The next step is to remove any clothing that's present, any debris or fluids, to get a clean view of any injuries or any identifying features of the body. And we take photographs at that step. Those are called our second round photographs. While my technicians are helping prepare the body, remove clothing, I am documenting things such as hair color, eye color, height, weight, tattoos, scars, anything that could be important for identifying later on.
After that, is there an external exam that happens?
Yes, that's the general basic items that I just described documenting. I will also note if there's any signs of external injury or any signs of external natural disease.
When you write your report, how do you go about documenting any injuries that you find?
So if a report, in this case, there are a significant amount of findings on the external examination, I will give those injuries a letter designation, which matches what's on my diagram and in my report, just to keep myself straight. Then I will proceed with following those wound paths and other findings in the body itself during the internal examination. And then when I write my report, I take each individual injury, starting from the outside to the inside, and group them separately.
Now, when you do your external exam, are you also noting any potential post-mortem changes that occurred?
Yes.
And what kinds of things are those?
That could be rigor mortis, or stiffening of the body's muscles after death. Lividity or lever mortis, which is pooling of the body's blood in response to gravity, as well as temperature, cooling of the body after death.
After the external exam, what happens next?
So then we perform an internal examination, which is a review of all of the body's cavities and organs, from the cranial vault to the chest, abdomen, and pelvis.
And you mentioned toxicology. Are there times when you take toxicology? Does that happen all the time? Just if you could tell us about that.
So we take toxicology samples in the vast majority of our autopsies. It's up in the 90%. Homicides, it's 100% if we're able to get a sample.
And how do you do that specifically? Where does that come from?
So generally, we take blood from the femoral vein externally through a venipuncture, but depending on the condition of the remains, we may have to seek other sources. So we start peripherally from the legs, from the arms, move more towards centrally. So blood from the heart, blood from the chest cavities. So it just depends on the nature of the case.
Are there times when a DNA sample is taken from the victim or a body?
So we prepare what are called blood spot cards on every case that comes in, autopsy and external, and we retain those.
Now, the procedure that you just told us about that you follow when you conduct your autopsies, were you able to follow that procedure in Jennifer's particular case?
So in Jennifer's case, a lot of the external examination was obscured, the normal external features, by the extensive charring of her body. So I was unable to see any residual hair, any eye color, any identifying scars or marks, fingernail length. There was extensive fire damage to the outside of her body. This made documenting the injuries during the external exam more difficult, because I didn't appreciate a lot of them until I did the internal examination, because that external appearance had been obscured by the fire damage.
Now, was there any clothing or personal items collected from Jennifer's body?
No, there were no, I don't know if she was unclad, but there were no clothing remnants that was received with her remains.
Were Jennifer's hands covered in white retention bags?
Yes, any suspected homicide or other suspicious cases, we cover hands and sometimes feet, depending on the case, with what we call white evidence retention bags. This just protects any potential trace evidence that is in the hands that might be disrupted during transport to our office.
Now, were any fingerprints or nail clippings able to be obtained from Jennifer?
So, again, due to the extensive thermal injuries, she both exhibited pugilistic posturing, which is the drawing of the arms up in response to the heat shortening of the flexor muscles. She also had heat fractures of the hands, so her hand bones were exposed and charred, and her fingerprints, the skin of the fingerprints was, or the fingertips was unable to be printed. It was too damaged.
The post-mortem changes that you discussed that you will look for during an external examination, such as lividity and rigor mortis, were you able to observe those in this particular case?
So yes, referring to my report on page number 2, this is on the autopsy report. So again, because of that pugilistic posturing, I can't assess the actual rigor mortis that's from the decomposition process because it's obscured by these heat changes. I was able to see very faint purple fixed lividity on the remaining intact skin of her torso. She had very little skin just on the back that was not damaged by the fire.
Now, I'd like to discuss the injuries that you noted in your report, starting with number 1, which is the thermal injuries. Now, you discussed your findings just now with regard to that, but I'd like to draw your attention to the part of your report under that section where it says there is no soot in the airways. Did you see that?
Yes.
All right. How were you able to make that determination?
So when I remove the airways, including from the tongue intact with the trachea and the bronchi and the lungs, I open up the back of those airways and I look with my eye to see if there's any black soot-type material that might be deposited in the airway.
Did that mean anything to you, the fact that there was no soot in the airways in regards to this case?
So it's a soft finding that indicates the person may not have been breathing at the time of their death, but it's not conclusive. We submit additional testing to determine if that's the case.
So was there another test that was performed to determine whether or not there was smoke inhalation with regard to Jennifer?
Yes, as part of a comprehensive toxicology panel, a carbon monoxide test was ordered. So carbon monoxide binds to the protein in your blood called hemoglobin that carries oxygen from your lungs out to your tissues of your body. Carboxyhemoglobin binds to hemoglobin much tighter than oxygen itself, so you become unable to deliver oxygen to your tissues via your bloodstream. And the percentage that's given is the results given in a percentage. It's 8% in this case. That just means of 100 hemoglobin molecules, 8% of those had carbon monoxide as opposed to oxygen bound.
Doctor, I just want to ask you, was it not detected or was it 8% in Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It was not detected in this case. I'm thinking of Jesse.
And with regards to that finding, again, what, if anything, did that mean to you with regards to this particular case?
So to me, that means that Jennifer was not breathing at the time her body was burned. So that was what we call post-mortem thermal injuries. So she was not breathing, meaning not inhaling that carbon monoxide gas into her lungs.
I'd like to discuss number 2 with you, wound number 2, where it says gunshot wound to head. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, prior to your internal exam, and you may have said it, were x-rays taken in this case?
Yes.
Were you able to determine anything from those x-rays about the head area?
So I was able to see that there was something called radiopaque, meaning it appears dark on an x-ray, on the right side of her head. You can only kind of see the general area, you don't know exactly, and there did appear to be some skull fractures as well.
You indicated that photos were taken during the course of this examination. I'm going to show you, and let me just ask you, was that of both Jennifer and Jesse's autopsies? I'm going to show
Standard
you,
procedure for every case.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as S1H. I'm going to ask you, Doctor, if you could take a look at these photos. The
Jesse.
photos. I'm sorry, yeah, just all of
All
them,
of
and let
them.
me know if
Okay.
you recognize those.
Yes, these are photographs of that were taken at the autopsy of Jennifer, as well as Jesse.
And are the 2 body diagrams also in these photos as well?
They are, yes.
Thank you. And do those photos fairly and accurately depict how Jennifer and Jesse's bodies looked in those pictures at the time when you performed their autopsies?
They do.
At this time, the state would seek permission to publish photos.
Any objection?
Could we just approach briefly?
Sure. Okay. With that request, we're ready to move forward if you want to show pictures on the screen.
I think that's slide 33. Doctor, what is this that we're looking at?
So this is a photograph of the screen in my old X-ray suite of an X-ray of Jennifer's head, neck, and upper shoulders.
Now, did you make any, you said it before, but did you make any notations or notice anything in this particular X-ray?
Yes, and it's important to note that left and right are flipped, so you can see the faint R up at the top. So in the right side of her head, there are several, again, what we call radio opaque objects. I don't know what these are until I remove them. I just note where they are so I can find them. And I also see evidence of skull fractures on the right side.
Would you be able, if you could, just circle both of those areas, just so we can have an understanding of where they're located?
Okay, we'll print that as slide 33.1.
Thank you, Judge. Once this is printed, if we could have...
Dr. Thoma, can you do me a favor? In the bottom right corner, there's an undo button. If you hold it down, or yeah, either way. Thank you.
We can have slide 37, please. Okay, Doctor, what are we looking at?
So this is a copy of the body diagram that I took my notes on for this case. You can see Jennifer's name at the top, that unique case number, which in her case is 13181299, as well as the autopsy date, my initials, and my tech's initials.
Now, is the injury that you just noted with regard to her head, is that notated on this diagram anywhere?
It is, yes.
And where is that?
So up at the top, should I circle it?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So, or I'll underline it. So I noted where I recovered that radiopaque object, which turned out to be ballistics material, from her head.
And if you could describe where specifically on her head that was located?
Sure. So this is page 3, about halfway down the page, under site of lodgement. So I'm going to use the anatomic word and then show on my body too. So the right parietal scalp, so that's the scalp that is near the top of the head. This is frontal, this is temporal, this is parietal. So that bullet and fragments were recovered from directly underneath that scalp, as well as the parietal bone. The bone has the same name as the scalp region that it's over.
Now, was there a track associated with this injury?
Yes.
And what does that mean, I guess, first of all, track?
Sure. So when we're documenting gunshot wounds, we document an entrance, we document an exit if there is one, or a site of lodgement if the bullet did not exit. We follow the pathway of the bullet from the entrance wound through the body, and that's called the track.
What, if anything, can you say about the course and direction?
So in this case, the skin that would have contained the entrance wound or shown the entrance wound externally was not present. It was burned away. So I was able to just see some fracturing on the base of the skull in the region of the right ear. So I was able to see that that was where the bullet had entered the cranial cavity, or it struck the cranial cavity. I could not see it on the skin because it was no longer there. It then went through, it was a tangential wound, so it didn't go in and pass through a bunch of structures in the brain. It was very at an angle, like this. So it was very shallow wound path.
Now, you indicated that some ballistic fragments were recovered.
Yes.
If we could please have slide 5.
Can we have have that one printed. 37.1. Excuse me, yeah, 37.1.
Doctor, this is slide 35. Can you tell us what this is?
So this is a fragment or a photograph of the deformed lead core that was the main projectile on that X-ray and that was recovered between the scalp on the right side of the head.
We can have slide 36, please. And how about this, doctor? What are we looking at?
So this is the copper jacketing as well as the bone fragment here that was recovered within the brain itself. So some bullets have copper jacketing and a lead core on the inside. When bullets that have these characteristics strike bones, especially thick ones at a certain angle, I see this a lot where the core and the jacket become separated. So this is the largest fragment of the jacket that I recovered from within the brain itself. There were 2 other smaller fragments that were in the wound track.
What, if anything, was done with those 4 fragments that you mentioned?
So each one we collect, photograph, and place into a labeled envelope.
Can we preserve 36.1, please?
Doctor, I'd like to move on now to wound number 3 that you note. What is that?
So wound number 3, and that's at the bottom of page 3, is a stab wound of the left lower chest.
In your report under wound number 3, where it says the exact wound characteristics cannot be ascertained due to the absence of the overlying skin, do you see that? What does that mean?
So the wounds on the front of the body, the anterior torso, a lot of that skin was no longer absent due to the thermal effects, the fire effects burning the skin away. So the first surface that I encountered externally was actually some of the underlying musculature and underlying fat under your skin.
If I showed you your the diagram, the body diagram, would you be able to point out all of the subsequent that wound and the subsequent stab wounds on that diagram?
Yes.
If we could please have slide 37 again. Okay, so this injury that you just referred to, can you point this out for us?
So it's A on the diagram and A in the report. Sorry.
Thank you, doctor. We can move on to number 4. What is that?
37.2.
So number 4 is the stab wound of the left lower abdomen.
And where is that located on this diagram?
That is B. There.
And what, if anything, did you note about this particular wound?
So this is similar to the above wound A, where I could not examine the external features due to the lack of overlying skin remaining.
Now, with regards to these wounds, did you make any notations about the direction of the wounds? And I guess we'll go back if we could. I should have asked you with regard to the first one that you discussed, so number 2. Actually, would be number 3 in your report.
Yes. So this wound enters the chest cavity on the left side and strikes the left lung, a portion of the left lung. This is from and when I state these directions in any type of injury, I'm simply talking about the body in this so-called anatomic position. So I'm looking at the external injury in comparison to the internal track and describing that relation to the standard body axes. This does not mean that anyone was in any particular position. So this went from the front of Jennifer's body towards the back. It went from the lateral or left side of the body towards the midline.
And with regard to number 4, the stab wound of the left lower abdomen that you marked, and that, just to be clear, does that correlate to B? It's hard to see. Does that correlate to B, doctor?
It does, yes.
Okay. Can you just, again, describe the direction of that wound and any other observations that you made about it?
Sure. So this was a shallower wound compared to wound A. It did not enter the body cavity or the inside of the stomach area, what we call our stomach, but the inside of the abdomen, peritoneal cavity. So it did not go through it did go through the peritoneal wall, but it did not strike any of the abdominal organs.
Can you say anything about the depth of that wound?
It was up to an inch, but hard to say because I didn't have the overlying skin.
Now, with regard to wound number 5, what is that?
Wound number 5 is a stab wound of the right breast that I'm indicating here, marked with C on the diagram, as well as in the autopsy report itself, page 4, about halfway down.
And what was the estimated depth of penetration of that wound?
This one went much deeper. It was approximately 3 to 4 inches.
And can you tell us anything else that you noted about this wound in terms of its characteristics?
This wound was associated with injuries to both the middle and lower lobes of the right lung, and there was also, not sure if it'll let me write this, I can't read that, sorry, 900 milliliters of blood in the right chest cavity.
What, if anything, does that indicate to you, the 900 milliliters of blood in the chest cavity?
So all of these wounds, with the exception of B, clearly have hemorrhage associated with them, both in the wound tract itself, as well as around defects in the left lung and the right lung, and bleeding into the body cavities, which leads me to conclude that she was alive and actively bleeding while being stabbed, or was stabbed and then could bleed, so to speak.
The direction of penetration of this wound was what?
This is wound 5, so this again is front to back and downward.
We could move on to wound number 6. What is that?
Wound number 6 is a stab wound of the left mid-back. That is here.
For the record, we just know you're noting that.
I'm noting that. Sorry, this is not a very blunt instrument.
And what, if anything, did you note about this particular wound?
So this wound penetrated, went entirely through the posterior chest wall and entered the chest cavity. I was able to trace tracks in the lower lobe of the left lung. There was 600 milliliters in the left cavity, but because there were defects from both A and D, it could be from one or the other or both.
Can you say anything about the depth of the penetration of that wound?
Yes, this was another one of the deeper wounds with the estimated depth of penetration 3 to 4 inches.
We could move on to wound number 7 now. What is that?
Wound number 7 is a stab wound of the left lower back. It's here on the diagram. It's hard to see, but it's right there.
What, if anything, did you note about the characteristics of that wound?
So this wound, I was able to get a better look at. The skin was preserved, so I was able to give when we describe stab wounds, we describe the length of the wound on the surface of the skin with skin tension, so sometimes the wounds get pulled apart by the natural fibers in your skin. And without skin tension, so I cut around those and sever those fibers so I can get a truer appearance of how long the wound is on the skin surface. So this one was an inch long on the surface, both with and without tension.
Were you able to do that with regard to the other stab wounds?
I was able to do that with the stab wound D of the left mid-back. The other stab wounds on the front of the torso, A, B, and C, again, the overlying skin was no longer present, so I could not give an estimate of how it appeared on the skin.
We could have slide 34, please.
Hold on, so let's print, can you go back for a second? Can we print that as 37.3, please? Now we can move on, and we can just undo that.
Doctor, what are we looking at here?
So this is the skin of the lower back. This it's hard to tell because it's zoomed in. Usually the number indicates the feet. I'm not sure where this one is. I'm just making sure that if it's D or E. They're both oriented obliquely, and they both have similar external characteristics, meaning they have a length of 1/2 inch, so that's this length, as well as a little tail, so to speak. These kind of irregular wound edges can be produced if, once the knife enters the body cavity, either the person holding the knife twists the knife, or if the person being stabbed with the knife turns away, or a combination of both. So you get those irregular wound edges as the knife changes orientation and is pulled out.
Thank you. I'm going to take this one. Just go to the whole screen.
We just have to print that. Can you go back just for 1 second? 34. 34.1. Now you can, yep, thank you.
Doctor, could you determine, as a result of your examination, whether at the time of her death she was suffering from any natural diseases?
No, I proceeded with the internal examination where I examined all of the organs for injuries and signs of natural disease, and she appeared in good health that I would expect from a 45-year-old.
Okay, so could you determine whether any natural causes contributed to her death?
No, there was no natural disease.
Now, based on your examination of Jennifer, and in light of your education, training, and experience, were you able to come to a determination as to the cause or mechanism of her death?
So for the cause and manner?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I was.
Okay, what was the cause first?
So I'm going to talk about mechanism, which I don't normally do because it's not specific, but the mechanism in this case is blood loss. So that's the specific physiologic derangement that causes somebody's life functions to cease. So because you can have blood loss from a bunch of different factors, we don't leave that alone on a death certificate. But because the mechanism involves both types of injuries that cause blood loss, the gunshot wound to the head, as well as bleeding internally from those stab wounds, I combined them in my cause of death statement, and I listed it as gunshot wound of head and stab wounds of torso.
And on what did you base that conclusion?
So there was a significant amount of blood in both chest cavities, and so-called softer findings, such as organ pallor. So one of the reasons your skin and your organs appear certain colors that you have circulating blood. So if you're losing that blood volume, you can look very pale, as can your internal organs and your mucosal membranes.
Now, based on your examination of Jennifer, in light of your education, training, and experience, were you able to come to a determination as to the manner of her death?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
So the manner of death is just basically a shorthand way to explain how the cause of death came to be, so it's the circumstances. So since these injuries were inflicted by another person or persons, the manner of death is classified as homicide.
Okay, and then what did you base that conclusion?
In my opinion, she did not do this to herself, and it didn't happen accidentally, and it's not natural because it's injuries.
Thank you. Doctor, on November 21st of 2018, did you also perform an autopsy on Jesse Caneiro?
I did.
Did you document that examination in a report?
I did.
I'm going to show you and showing council what's been marked as S378. Do you recognize that?
So this is the report that I previously looked over and has those same components, the autopsy report, toxicology, investigative report, and additional body diagrams.
Now, what is the date of that report?
So the report was signed on February 1st, 2019.
And does it document the date and time that the autopsy of Jesse was performed?
Yes, I performed the autopsy on November 21st of 2018 at around 2 p.m.
And what was the age of Jesse?
So I was told that Jesse was 11 years old.
And did you take notes on a body diagram with respect to Jesse's autopsy?
Yes, I did.
And if I showed you that diagram, would that assist in explaining his injuries?
Yes, it would.
Now, we talked earlier about the protocol for performing an autopsy. Were you able to follow that protocol in Jesse's case?
Yes, I did the same basic steps.
During your examination of Jesse's body, did you note anything about his physical condition, including any clothing, height, weight, etc.?
So, starting at the top, I noted that he was only wearing light-colored briefs that were blood-stained and also very wet. He had no personal property that was on his body, but a blue earring was found within the body bag.
How about his weight?
He was 95 pounds.
What, if any, other observations did you make about Jesse during that external examination?
So he had some what we call skin slippage, or loss of the overlying layers of the skin. These can be caused by decomposition, where the bonds break down. But in this case, my opinion is that it's caused by exposure to heat, not obviously as direct exposure to as Jennifer's body was, but there was some heat near him. He's has some superficial blistering is another word for it, and there's also some brownish discoloration, not quite charring, but just some changes of the skin on the body.
What, if any, post-mortem changes did you note about Jesse's body?
So he had rigor that was able to be evaluated. It was moderately difficult to break. He had purple posterior lividity that was slightly blanching, and his body was cool, but both bodies had been refrigerated.
I don't know if you explained it, but just lividity, what is that?
It's cooling of the body's, of the blood in response to gravity. So in whatever position you die in, your heart's no longer pumping, the blood is going to settle downward to, gravitational forces. After a certain, or before a certain period of time, it's still located within the blood vessels themselves. So you can actually push on the body's surface and physically move with your hand the blood out of those vessels. It's called blanching. After a certain period of time, those blood vessels themselves start to break down, and the blood seeps into all of the other body layers, so the fat, and that's called fixed because it's not in a blood vessel anymore.
So in this case, did the lividity tell you anything at all about Jesse?
Honestly, we document these things because they're part of the standard protocol, but they're very rarely useful in practicality because there's just so many different variations and factors. It's unfortunately not like you see on TV.
Now, on page 2 of your report, do you begin to document Jesse's injuries, both external and internal?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and this is where your attention to the bottom of page 2. How do you generally describe the characteristics of those injuries?
Can you clarify?
Yeah, I think there's 3 different things there, beginning with stab wounds of the torso.
Understood, yes. So in all of my reports involving injuries, I give kind of a summary statements of what type of injuries you see and what general body regions you see them in. So in this case, there are stab wounds of the torso and left upper arm. The torso is just the trunk of the body. An atypical appearing wound of the right side of the chin. I can describe that later. I couldn't classify it into one particular injury category, as well as evidence of smoke inhalation.
You could please have slide 31 diagram. Doctor, what is this that we're looking at on the screen?
So this is a copy of the body diagram that I used during my external examination. I can see Jesse's name up at the top, his unique case number, which is 1300, as well as my initials, the date, and my text initials.
Are all of Jesse's wounds, or at least stab wounds, noted on this diagram, or these diagrams that we're looking at?
Yes.
Can you go over them on this diagram for us, just pointing them out, and then we'll go through each one?
Okay. So starting from the left side, there's wound A, there's wound B, and then further down on the left side is wound C. On the right side, the top of the shoulder, is wound D. Then moving to the arm, there are 4 different wounds, but many of them are paired because the knife went through one side of the arm and came out the other side. So there's E and F on the bicep, and then there's H, I, J, and K that are on the top of the arm or around the axilla. And then there's also a wound near the left nipple, G.
We could have slide 28, please. Doctor, what are we looking at in general here?
This is a photograph of Jesse's body. You can see his case number up at the top. You can also see this purple discoloration here. That's lividity.
Of the wounds that we looked at on the body diagram just previously, which of those wounds, if you put in terms of how you characterize them by their letter, which of those wounds are we looking at on this picture?
So this is A. This is B. This is C. You cannot appreciate D. It's under
Where would that be?
It's under the black box. This is very roughly the top of the shoulder up there. And then let me look at my report to see if this is E or F, just because the arm is rotated. So this is F.
So in your report, under injury number 1, stab wound, back of left shoulder, do you see that on page 2?
I do.
Which injury does that correspond to on here? What letter?
So this is letter A.
Can you describe for us what you noted about that injury?
Yes, so it's slightly obliquely oriented or at an angle. There's no discernible blunt edge. And these are standard descriptions that we give of these external wound characteristics. The measurement on the skin was 1/2 inch long with the tension, 3/8 of an inch without the tension.
Now, after penetrating the skin, which direction did the knife proceed through?
So this went through the shoulder blade in towards the front of the shoulder and soft tissue of the left shoulder area.
And the estimated depth of the penetration is what?
So this went approximately 3 to 4 inches through the body. It did not enter the chest cavity. It was straight through, kind of towards the axilla, if you will.
I'm going to refer you to injury number 2 in your report. What does that say?
So this is stab wound of the left upper back.
And can we see that in this photo?
Yes, it's lettered B, both on the photo and in the report.
Can you describe anything that you noted about this injury?
This injury does have some bruising around it, or some hemorrhage of the blood that's entered the soft tissue.
And how is it oriented?
So it's slightly obliquely oriented, but the other direction. It is 1/2 inch long on the skin surface with tension and 3/8 of an inch without tension.
Can you say anything about the direction of penetration and or the estimated depth?
Yes, so unlike in my report, which has a typo, it's actually back to front. The knife goes through the skin surface and struck a spinous process of the vertebral column. These are projections of bone that stick off the back of your vertebra so that muscles can attach to them. So because the knife struck the bone, it only went approximately 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch deep.
We can move on to wound number 3 in your report. What is that?
So wound number 3 is the C, the back of the left shoulder.
What, if anything, did you note about this wound?
This is of a very similar appearance. It's obliquely oriented. It measures 3/4 of an inch long on the surface of the skin and 3/8 of an inch without tension.
After penetrating the skin, can you explain the direction that the knife proceeded?
Yes, it went through the soft tissue of the back and through the back of the chest cavity. It entered the chest, but there are no injuries that I saw to internal organs in the left side of the chest.
I'd like to move on to injury number 4. What is that?
That's D. That's the one that is obscured by this black box.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you note about that injury?
So this injury has a different appearance. It's 1.5 inches long with tension and 1.25 inches long without tension. The wound edges are slightly irregular, leading me to think there's more of that pulling of the knife and or twisting of the body while this injury is happening.
And is that different from the other injuries that you just described?
The appearance is different, yes.
We can go back to this page. Oh, we have to, I'm sorry. If we could capture this, please.
That's 28.1.
Doctor, if we could move on to injury number 5 now in your report. What is that?
So this is a stab wound of the left upper arm and chest. And I should point out these next 3 wounds are all closely approximated on the body. So they're all involving the left shoulder or upper arm and involve a trajectory or a track that enters the axilla or armpit, as well as the chest, both in the axilla and then on the chest itself. So, meaning to me that his arm was held in a position where it's against his chest, because I can follow 3 separate wound tracks in that direction.
So are you saying that the wound would have gone through the arm and come out the other side?
Several do, and then are associated with almost a re-entry stab wound on the torso. So went completely through the arm, and then the knife went straight into the torso.
Understood. Now, doctor, the slide that we just looked at, were you able to see those wounds on that picture?
I could see wound F, which is the inside of the upper arm. The arm is very tricky because I'm observing someone in this position, but obviously they can move their arm all around, and it can be difficult to measure as well as document the inside of the wounds. So I have a lot of pictures of different orientations so I can see which wounds match up to which wounds.
Now, doctor, of the pictures that you and I looked at, is there another picture that depicts those wounds that you just referred to?
Yes, I believe there's at least one picture that gets a large, most of the groupings of the wounds.
If we could please have slide 29.
Doctor, what are we looking at?
Okay, so this is the left upper arm. So we are not seeing that wound on the back of the arm. That's lower down. This is just the very top of the shoulder and upper arm. And these wounds actually all connect. So this is sure I have the right one here. That's each. Yeah. This is wound 4.
So the line that you have, the purple line with the arrow, is the outermost one? I'll let you say it.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
It's hard just with the one photograph and not seeing the zoomed out picture to orient.
So, you have I, K, and J.
Yes.
Now, is that
the order? Is that the order of the wound, sort of, in terms
Yes.
of entry?
So the knife entered the outside of the upper arm, went through the front of the upper arm, so in front of the, just make sure. It didn't hit the humerus. It went through the muscles of the upper arm, exited out the inside of the upper arm, and I'm retracting the arm out, so you can see that this wound J represents a wound back into the axilla. So in reality, this picture is taken like this, so you can appreciate all the wounds, but the wound path is actually like this.
Doctor, in your report, do you make certain notations about each of these wounds in your report?
I don't understand the question.
I'll refer to you. So, wound number 5 in your report.
Yes.
What is that wound refer to on this picture?
So wound number 5 is not visible. That would be down here, and F would be down here. So that's a lower down stab wound that is not visible in this one photo, where the knife went completely through the muscles at the back of the arm and exited out the front. After that, when you line all of these wound tracks back up, it lines perfectly with the stab wound in the left chest.
Doctor, if we can move on, and I want to get to that, but to wound number 6, what is that, and do we see it on here?
Wound number 6 is right here. This is H. This is the stab wound of the left upper arm. It's quite close to the top of the shoulder. This is one of the more atypical appearing, or not atypical, but one of the larger wounds on the skin surface. It measures 2 inches long with that tension and 2 1/4 inches without the tension. And this is another wound that it's difficult to appreciate on this photo, the exact pathway, because that knife actually goes in the arm and just travels through the musculature of your axilla and your upper arm. So it looks like it's connected to some of these, but it's actually just the knife goes in, doesn't come back out.
And then wound number 7, do we see that on this photo?
Yes, this is this complex of wounds that I highlighted here.
The IKJ.
So IKJ, yes.
Can we go back to the diagram?
Hold on, don't do that yet. Slide 29.1, please. All right, doctor, we could clear that, please.
Doctor, on this diagram, the third one down, facing the photo to the right, where it says G.
Yes.
Can you just tell us about that? Because I don't think we saw that one.
No, that's not represented in any of the pictures we have. This is associated with these wounds here, B and F. So that's also under, that is supposed to be a Roman numeral V. So this is the knife going through the upper arm into the chest wall. And after this went through the chest wall on the left, it entered the chest cavity, but did not cause any internal injuries other than some bleeding into the chest.
Thank you, doctor. And then, was there another wound that you know in particular? I'm looking at wound 8.
Yes.
Is that on this diagram?
It is not on this diagram.
Okay. Is it in one of the pictures that we looked at?
Yes.
If we could please.
Can we print 31.1, please? So E, F, and G are all part of this, a single wound.
Yes.
So you can raise that when you get a chance, doctor, and then we'll look at the next. Okay, if you have slide 30. Doctor, what are we looking at in this slide?
So this is this wound 8, wound of right shin. So the feet are towards this way. This is the mouth is up here. Okay, the head would be towards the top of the screen. And this wound is very shallow. It does have some features that I would lump in the gunshot wound category. So it's got a central punched out defect. as I say, gunshot wound, entrance wound category. And then this, so this is the hole, and then this is what we call a margin of abrasion, meaning that the bullet struck the skin at an acute angle and scraped the skin off. But because this is such a shallow wound and there's no track in the body, I was not comfortable classifying it definitively as a gunshot wound, but with this appearance of the outside, and there's a depressed fracture of the underlying mandible of the jaw, I think this is very reasonable to believe that this is some type of what we call atypical gunshot wound.
Doctor, can you just orient us on yourself? Whereabout is that wound?
So it's about here.
Thank you.
For the record, the doctor pointed to the right side, just below her lips, down towards the bottom part of her jawbone.
We could preserve this.
Slide 30.1.
Doctor, did any of the stab wounds that you described or the wound to the chin hit any major organs that would cause immediate blood loss?
Not immediate or not immediate fatal blood loss, or fatal organ injury, I should say.
Now, after you note these particular injuries, your report goes on to discuss the internal examination. I'd like to draw your attention to page 5 where it says neck. Do you see that?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you note about this area?
So as I did in Jennifer's case, I removed the entire respiratory system in block, tongue, trachea, bronchi, lungs, and opened that up so I can see if there's any soot deposited anywhere in the breathing pathways. So this had a small amount of dark colored material that was a little bit further up towards the, near the vocal cords, so towards the top.
Did that mean anything to you?
Again, this is a soft sign that somebody was alive at the time of a fire, bringing in that particles, those dark particles, that soot.
Doctor, your report goes on to discuss your examination of the respiratory system. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, and what, if anything, do you note about that, or did you note?
So further down where the trachea splits into the main stem bronchi, going to the right and left lung, there was some similar appearing dark material there.
Now, what, if any, testing was conducted with respect to smoke inhalation?
So in addition to a comprehensive toxicology panel, I requested a carbon monoxide exposure screen, as I did in Jennifer.
And what were the results of that?
So this is the result of that 8% carboxyhemoglobin. So 8 of the 100 hemoglobin molecules had carbon monoxide bound to them.
And just what does that mean, if you could explain that to us?
So when we have fire deaths, we always send for carbon monoxide. We want to make sure that it is elevated enough to explain the death. Obviously, if we have a death that's billed as a fire death and the concentration is 0, that's concerning that something else happened and the fire was set to obscure that. Lower concentrations can be fatal in people that have significant underlying disease, such as in elderly people with heart disease. It can be difficult to interpret at the lower levels because normal individuals can have anywhere from 2 to 3.5%, depending on which textbook to read, that is just breathing in our environment. People who are smokers, I've seen reported anywhere from up to 5 to 8%. But because, so his 8% is in that range, but because I don't have the history that Jesse was a smoker, I believe that this is all from inhalation of that carbon monoxide during a fire.
Now, could you determine at the time of Jesse's death whether he was suffering from any natural diseases?
So after I examined all of the organs and all of the organ cavities, he appeared to be a standard 11-year-old in good health.
Could you determine whether any natural causes contributed to Jesse's death?
There was no natural disease present to contribute to his death.
Now, based on your examination of Jesse Caneiro, and in light of your education, your training, and experience, were you able to come to a determination as to the cause of his death?
Yes.
And what was that?
So in this case, I gave it a cause of death and a contributing cause of death. So similar to Jennifer, his mechanism is blood loss and the inability to deliver oxygen to his organs. But he had while hers was just blood loss, he has the addition of having that carbon monoxide that is going to limit his oxygen carrying capacity. So I listed the stab wounds of the torso and left upper extremity as the cause of death, or the main cause of death, but then the contributing cause of death is smoke inhalation.
And what did you base these conclusions on?
My years of training experience, the autopsy I performed on him, as well as the many other autopsies I performed on both homicide victims and fire victims.
And based on your examination of Jesse, and in light of your education, training, and experience, were you able to come to a determination as to the manner of his death?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
So similarly, these injuries were not self-inflicted or accidental in nature. They're not natural, so homicide. They were inflicted by somebody else or some other set of persons.
And what did you base that conclusion on?
Just the appearance of the wounds, the location of the wounds in the back of the shoulder.
Thank you, Doctor.
Take a report up there.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Ross?
No question.
Okay. Doctor, you can step down. Thank you.